Have you ever felt like you're working your whole life to get there, to get to some destination, and you still feel empty, wondering if you'll ever finally feel settled? In this video, we're going to explore how we can stop chasing the illusion of someday and start finding real joy and meaning right now, today. We'll look at Jesus' surprising insight about all this and how changing your mindset can transform your whole life. A few weeks ago, Scottie Scheffler, the #1 golfer in the world, sat down in a press conference on the eve of one of the biggest tournaments of the year, the British Open. Scottie had won 6 out of the last 10 starts he'd had. He's the greatest athlete in the game right now. He had the trophy shelf, the bank account, the new baby, the fans' adoration, the big headlines. And yet, when someone asked him what it felt like to be on top of the world, he paused, and then he said, "It feels like you work your whole life for these moments, and then they only last a few minutes. You win, and you're on to the next thing. You eat dinner, you move on. And sometimes, honestly, I just don't understand the point." Let that sink in for a second. This was the guy at the top. He got everything he wanted. He reached the pinnacle of success. He earned millions upon millions of dollars, and yet he's asking, what's the point? But don't so many of us fall into this same trap? Honestly, I know I have. We think once I get the house, the raise, the retirement fund, once the kids are settled, once the chaos stops, once I get there. But friends, this is the myth of arrival, the illusion that just around the corner, life will make sense, we'll be secure, at peace, fulfilled. Ecclesiastes is this strange, haunting, beautiful book tucked deep in the Old Testament. It begins by describing the book's author, the teacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Now that's a pretty unmistakable profile of Solomon, the wisest, richest, most powerful man in Israel's history, standing at the end of his life, looking back over all of it, saying, "Vanity of vanities, everything is vanity." Or in today's language, it's all smoke and mirrors. You try to grab onto it, but it's always just out of reach. Just like Scottie Scheffler, Solomon had it all: wisdom, wealth, power, accomplishment, influence. If anyone should have felt fulfilled, if anyone had arrived, it was him. And yet he looked back over his palaces, his success, his carefully crafted legacy, and he said something that sounds remarkably similar to Scottie's declaration. Sometimes, honestly, I just don't understand the point. Vanity of vanities, everything is vanity. This myth of arrival isn't new. It's ancient, it's universal. In his book, The Road to Character, David Brooks writes, "Success is always passing. It is always a mirage slightly out of reach. It is a temporary burst of applause that soon fades." And yet so many of us believe that if we finally achieve whatever it is we're striving for, then we will finally be fulfilled. But if it didn't work for Solomon and it didn't work for Scottie Scheffler, why do we think it'll work for us? There was a great hole-in-the-wall restaurant I used to go to with a sign in the window that said, "Free beer tomorrow." And the first time you see it, you think, nice. But then you come back the next day, same sign, "Free beer tomorrow." It doesn't matter how many times you come back, the free beer is always tomorrow. I think that's how a lot of us actually live. Peace tomorrow, joy tomorrow, fulfillment tomorrow, rest tomorrow. And if we're careful, we'll spend our whole lives waiting for the free beer that was never actually on tap. We may not say it out loud, but deep down, many of us are living by a script that goes something like this. Once I get through this season, once we pay off this debt, once the kids are older, once the house is fixed, once the schedule clears up, I'll finally be able to breathe. I'll finally be happy. I'll finally feel free. In her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, Brené Brown writes, "When we're waiting for the perfect moment, when the kids are grown, when we lose 10 pounds, when we retire, we're actually missing our lives." We can do this also spiritually, living in a sort of spiritual deferral, pushing joy and purpose and meaning down the road as if we're waiting for some future version of our lives when it will all finally make sense and we'll finally feel settled. But here's the problem. That version of your life is always just a little further away. And as long as you're living for someday, you're missing what God has placed right in front of you. That's called today, this day. We tell ourselves when we have more free time, then we'll start volunteering. Or we say when we're done repaying our student loan debt, then we can really start being generous. The Gospel of Luke tells a story about a time when Jesus is asked to settle a family dispute to make sure this inheritance is split fairly. But Jesus doesn't settle the dispute. Instead, he said, "Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." And then Jesus tells the story of a man who has a great year. His fields produce so much he's going to have to build more barns to hold all of it. And then he told himself, "I can say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.'" Do you hear it? He thinks he's arrived. But then God shows up and God says, "This very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you've prepared, whose will they be?" It's a heartbreaking parable, really, because this man wasn't evil, he wasn't a tyrant or a thief. He just wanted to get there, to be safe, to finally relax. But here's what Jesus is showing us. He spent his whole life storing up for a future that never came. He was so busy preparing to live that he forgot to actually live. And then comes the punchline. Jesus says, "So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God." That phrase, rich toward God, is where the whole parable turns. Jesus isn't just giving financial advice, he's inviting us into a completely different way of understanding life. A life where peace doesn't come from what you can hold in your hands, but from the one who holds you in his hands. A life where we can practice a rich and joyful spiritual life right here, right now. Jean-Pierre de Caussade, the French Jesuit theologian, wrote, "The present moment is always full of infinite treasures. It contains more than you have the capacity to hold. To be satisfied with the present moment is to delight in and to love the will of God." That's a beautiful declaration that God is not waiting for you in the next thing, in the next day, in the next chapter. God is already here. I remember early in my ministry, I worked with another Episcopal priest. One day he pulled me aside and said, "We're going to restructure the whole staff. It's going to be a big push, some long days, hard work, but once we get through this, it's going to be smooth sailing." I nodded, and over the next several weeks, I got to work. Then he decided we needed to restructure how our committees work, then the annual budget, then the vestry or our board of directors, then the building maintenance plan. Each time a big push, and then the promise of smooth sailing. Eventually I figured it out. There's no such thing as the time when we will eventually arrive and the stress will disappear and the path will stay flat and the wind will always be at our backs. Life doesn't work that way. Frankly, church doesn't work that way. Marriage doesn't work that way. Parenting doesn't work that way. Nothing worth doing works that way. And that's exactly what Jesus is saying to the man trying to build bigger barns. Joy and peace and smooth sailing don't come from arriving at a destination. They come from living in the kingdom now, trusting God now, being faithful now, practicing generosity now. Throughout the Bible, Jesus tells us things like, "Don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring problems of its own." Or Jesus teaches us to pray, "Give us this day our daily bread." Or Psalm 118 declares, "This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." Again and again, God is calling us to be present, to pay attention, to see the grace that is already here. Because this day, this one right now, this is holy ground. This is a holy moment. So here's the invitation. Don't wait for the perfect moment, or the dream job, or the kids to settle, or the calendar to open up, or the storms to pass. Jesus doesn't meet us at the finish line. He's running to meet us today. Today is where the kingdom is. Today is where grace can meet you. Today is where generosity can grow. Today is where joy can take root. You don't have to arrive in order to begin. You don't have to be finished in order to be faithful. You don't have to be perfect in order to be present. Annie Dillard, the Pulitzer Prize-winning poet, once wrote, "How we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives." It's a poetic, piercing reminder to stop waiting for life to begin, because this day, this moment, this is your life. And if we're not careful, we'll spend our whole lives almost living. If this video has helped you, I hope you take a second to like it and maybe even share it with a friend, especially if there's someone in your life who's been chasing a someday that will never actually arrive. And if you haven't already, it'd be great if you subscribe to this channel. I regularly talk about how God shows up in the real, messy, beautiful parts of life, and it'd be great to walk that journey with you. And as you go into the rest of your day, I'll pray that you're fully present and that you're richly alive and that you know deep in your bones that this day is a gift. So don't miss it. God bless you.